Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Appreciate you tuning in. This week, we're going to talk about Florida, so I'm excited about that. But, Kurt, man, how was your Thanksgiving?
Man, it's been really good, man. How was yours?
Good. Did y'all go anywhere?
No, we just had family over and had a big turkey and mashed
All right.
potatoes, gravy.
Yeah, other
Kind of,
people, we've had ham. My mom, she's big into cooking Cornish hens, which I'm not. That's not my jam. It feels like Thanksgiving, like you should have turkey. And
yeah,
this year, I was like, you got to do a turkey. It doesn't seem right if you don't.
yeah, that's so right, man. I don't think
Yeah.
I've ever had anything but turkey on Thanksgiving.
Really? Well, see, there you go. And our two guests, I'll go ahead and bring them on, Brian Nelli and Brandon Barton. Brandon, I was down in Biloxi, and my mom lives in Moss Point up on the Pascagoula River, and I swear I saw a billboard with you on it.
Yeah, yeah. There's one there for
Is
sure.
it?
Yeah, I didn't even know it was going up, so it was kind of a shock when somebody sent me a message and was like, "Hey, this is you on a billboard." So it's kind of crazy, but
Do you have them up all over the coast?
that's the only one I've ever seen.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That's
I
funny.
actually reached out to the store that put it up and to see if I could get the vinyl when they go to take it down. I thought it would be kind of cool to maybe put it in the garage or at least my head. Maybe that might be a little too much, but it's kind of cool.
Oh, yeah. No, that'd be awesome. I bet people take like pictures with you whenever they come over the house.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, cool. We've never had either one of y'all on the show before, so tell everybody who you are. Brandon, we'll start with you.
My name is Brandon Barton. I live in Pensacola, Florida. Been kayak fishing probably 12 years now. So actually 12 or 13. Do both inshore, offshore. Try to dabble in some bass fishing every once in a while, but originally from North Carolina, moved here about 16, 17 years ago, and just kind of got sucked into the fishing, the saltwater fishing, and kind of got sucked into kayak fishing. I originally started kayak fishing just because I went out on the pier and it was just so crowded, and there's always that school of fish getting busted up on out of your reach. So that kind of got me into it, and the fishery here is amazing. The different species and different type of fish in there is here just pretty awesome. So there's always something to do year round. So it kind of definitely sucked me in, and obviously getting into the pedal kayak. I originally got into the pedal kayaks pretty much immediately. So that started the whole passion. So it's pretty fun.
Heck yeah. And how about you, man?
Brian Nelli. I'm over on the east coast of Florida, Palm Beach area. Been kayak fishing since '06. Been kayak guiding since 2010. We do a little of everything, your exotic freshwater fish, offshore and inshore saltwater. And besides the guiding, I like to adventure out and do some tournaments fishing.
Heck yeah.
I do the saltwater and freshwater sides of that stuff as well.
So I guess a question I want to start out with, it's getting cold, so we're thinking Florida, already looking ahead to next year. And the Harris Chain is the Hobie event that's going to start the season. What does an offshore kayak look like? Y'all are both Hobie guys, so is it I guess an Outback?
For me, yeah, we use Outbacks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm both. I like the Outback and the PA. The Outback probably is a better kayak for going through the surf, handling big swells. But I try not to go out and big seas and big surf anymore because there's just no need to. If it's gonna be rough, I'm gonna try to go inshore. So I personally like the PA just because I can carry more gear. I'm more comfortable out there if I need to stand up and take a leak while I'm on the water, or haul more gear, or be able to haul more fish. The weight capacity of that just kind of makes it more of makes more sense. And I've been fishing out of the 360 a lot. I just can't get over how easy it is to maneuver that kayak. You got ultimate turning response, unlike a normal kayak where you got to go get some momentum to kind of turn, similar to a jet ski or whatever. But with that kayak, you can correct your headway and your adjustment, all that stuff immediately. So I also guide too. So being able to turn that kayak immediately and come up next to my client and help them, whatever it is that kayak is kind of taken over and been my everyday kayak from since it came out.
You know, I find you interesting that you're saying that the 360, you're using that even for offshore stuff. Are your clients in the 360 as well?
No, my clients are in the Outback, and one is just, you know, the price of the 360 to have multiple ones is a little high to have that many, but dragging it down the beach also, I mean, it's a lot heavier kayak. So, you know, just trying to have something that's easier on my back, my client's back, whatever, to get it down the beach. Yeah, I mean, even fishing, you know, we do a lot of reef fishing here. So some of the reef spots that we fish are very small, you know, maybe 10, 15 feet wide. So being able to hover over them, you know, in some kind of current or wind, that 360 allows you to correct your position instantly. So there's just so many different things that kayak allows you to do a little bit better. And I've got so used to that. So it's kind of hard to go away from that. But the Outback is probably the best overall, especially for offshore. But just, I like them both, but choice for now.
Kurt, are you in a 360?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's my favorite kayak, just for everything Brandon just said. I mean, it's just, once you start talking about position and holding position and getting the right angle, it's hard to beat the 360, you know. And I'm a freshwater guy exclusively, so I have no experience with using them in the ocean or anything like that. But it's for me, it's like the kayak to use. And you know, I'm a gear hoarder too, so I can bring all my gear. I don't have to like pick and choose which tackle box to bring. I just bring it all.
I think this is going to end up being a Hobie episode because I'm right on the edge. Should I go 360 this year? I kind of been going back and forth. I love that new, you know, I have a 180. I've had a 180 for a couple of years. I was in a big water Predator before that, and that's a great boat too, especially for offshore, I guess. But yeah, I think this year I might go 360. Guess I have to.
It's a phenomenal boat.
Yeah. So what species are y'all targeting offshore? I mean, I'm curious how your waters are different, you know, from the Panhandle over to the Atlantic side.
Barton, you want to start?
Yeah. So to me, offshore here is, you know, I know a lot about his area. I haven't been down there to get to fish, but there's pretty special down there. I know it drops off pretty quickly, so they get a lot of pelagic species.
Yeah.
Ours is, you know, we got a lot of reefs out there that are close by. We get a good number of pelagic species, maybe not as much as them. So, you know, during the summer, you know, really everything starts to kick off in the spring. You start getting your king mackerel rolling in. You got king mackerel, Spanish mackerel. Start getting some sailfish, some mahi. They're kind of, you know, few and far between. I know down there they're pretty consistent. And then, you know, you got red snapper pretty much year round, but the season is only open a certain amount of time. So we actually had a really good long extended snapper season this year. So it actually just closed. It's closing just this past weekend. So that was pretty good. And then, you know, we also get fish during the winter. You can always snapper fish for catch and release. And then you get some blackfin tuna that kind of start to show up in the winter, pretty much from, you know, November all the way to February. They can be hit or miss, but, you know, sometimes when they're out there, they're pretty strong. So there's a good variety of species. You know, you also have your chance at a cobia every once in a while. The cobia fishing's been kind of crappy over the past couple of years here. So, but even the king, it just changes. It's very seasonal, varies from year to year. I mean, some years I can remember in 2015 where we just had the abundance of mahi. I mean, I literally limited out on mahi right past the surf, sabiki, and bait before. So, and this year, you know, we've had a lot of struggles with pelagic species. We haven't had many king mackerel. I think between me and my charters, we've only caught 4 or 5 king mackerel all year. And usually that's a fish that everybody catches at least 1 or 2 every time you go out offshore fishing during the prime time months. So it changes. And, you know, there's always something that contributes to that. So.
Yeah, the kingfish are actually slow for us as well this year. I don't know what happened with the migration patterns changing or bait or whatever was going on. It was definitely an off year for them. But yeah, we get pretty much everything you can think of. In offshore saltwater, with the sailfish and kingfish are our main two that we catch the most of throughout the year. And then seasonal species like tuna and mahi. Typically, we're getting more tuna and mahi in the spring and the fall. And there's always a chance for wahoo throughout the year. Close to the moons, new and full moons are best chances for wahoo. Summertime moons typically are better. We do well. I have done well in the past in December, November, as well around the moons for wahoo.
Why is that?
What's that?
Why is that around moon? How does moon phase affect when you catch wahoo?
Just the feeding patterns. They, more, that's
Just
more of the
higher
time that
up?
they're, yeah. I can't explain. I'm not scientific about it, but that's just from my experience of being on the water. Those definitely around the new and full moons is a better time to have a chance at one.
Wow.
So are you
What
guys
I,
using live bait, or are you guys using artificial lures a lot for the offshore stuff?
Offshore is typically live bait. We do use vertical jigs and some variety of other kind of jigs. And that's more seasonal dependent, especially when the tuna are on, we do a lot of the vertical jigging. But typically you want the best shot at a sailfish or a wahoo or a mahi, you're going to want to have a live bait out. So
yeah, it's pretty much the same over here. We don't do as much vertical jigging because they're in deeper water. We're kind of in shallow water. We do a lot of live bait trolling for king mackerel, for sailfish, mahi. That's what be your prime bait for trolling would be a live bait. You can catch them on lures or dead cigar minnows. A lot of snapper fishing is either live bait or chunk bait. Sometimes we chunk up bonita for them. The tuna recently we've been catching all of them on just trolling lures. So I know they vertical jig theirs. We're kind of trolling for ours. So just different areas and the fish react different things.
So whenever somebody comes down there to either one of y'all and they want to go out on a guide trip, what do they need to bring anything?
for me, no, just a fishing license. I provide everything you need.
Yep, that's the same for me. All you need is a Florida fishing license. I provide kayaks, rods, reels, bait, and tackle.
Wow. Mind if I ask how much it is?
My trips vary, but an offshore trip is $400 for the first person, and I'm sorry, I'm losing light. $400 for the first person and $200 for each additional person. We typically max the group out at 3 just for safety and everything of, when 3 people hook up all at once, I can't help everybody at the same time. So we try to keep it to 3 people out there.
And that's a full day trip?
Yeah, it's 5 to 6 hours, and that includes your live bait. So down here, unfortunately, it is not as easy to catch live bait as it is up in Brandon's area. So we do actually buy the bait before trips.
And bait
Yeah,
is expensive.
Yeah.
So I run probably $350 per person, same half a day trip, 5-6 hours, and then $600 for 2. Like you said, we're pretty lucky. We don't have to buy bait. If we do buy anything, we're buying a cut up bonita, but most of the time we can catch that and save it for future trips. So we usually sabiki, which is a rig that a lot of people use out here for catching live bait. It's pretty much a multi-hook, very, very tiny hook rig that has a little piece of fish skin on it. Looks like a feather, and you kind of just jig that around some of the areas that hold bait, or if you see any bait, you can catch live bait pretty quickly on most days.
So, like, what type of depths are you guys talking about? It seems like that the Gulf is a little shallower, maybe, than the East Coast.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah. So we're typically fishing. We actually fish in the area that is the closest to deep water that you can get on the whole U.S. coast, the East Coast. And you can be in 100 feet in about 3/4 of a mile.
Wow.
So we're fishing, depending on what we're doing, from 60 foot to 250 feet. And that's, 250 is 2 miles out, maybe, So it drops pretty quick for us.
Dang.
Yeah, in my area, most of the stuff we fish around 50 to 75 feet of water. Something that is kind of in common with that, the area we fish, the Gulf Coast, is kind of the closest to the deep water or deep ledges. If you look at a map, you can see like the edge. So we're not as close as they are to their deep ledge, but in the area like I fish at, if you draw a straight line to the deep drop offs, that drops off to a couple hundred or 1,000. This area that I fish in is pretty much a straight shot. So that's why I assume some of the pelagic fishing is a little bit better where we are versus, Alabama or whatever. So.
Yeah, like I was saying before the show, I'm from Biloxi, and I had to go. It was pretty much even 15 miles out to the Gulf Islands. It was still all inshore. Sometimes you get cobia, amberjack. I mean, every now and then, maybe triple tail at buoys, things like that. But
Right.
we would go 22 miles out, and then we go from Mississippi water back to Louisiana because of the boot of Louisiana. But yeah, I mean, we just never had the opportunity to catch kind of fish.
Yeah, where I actually live at, Perdido Key area, it's a little bit closer to the Alabama border. If I go off the beach here and just say go out 2 to 3 miles, I'm only in 40 to 50 feet of water. So I normally drive down to Pensacola Beach, Navarre Beach, and then if I go out a mile or two off of there, I get up to 70, 75 feet. So that's why I go, an hour away from where I live, just because the offshore fishing, for reef fish and for pelagics is that much better over there versus down the street. Now for tarpon, that's a whole different story. I won't drive all the way over there because it's really good down the road from my house.
I know that's on my bucket list. Catch a tarpon. I've hooked into some small ones, but not like the ones I've seen on the billboard. Would you, man?
They're badass fish, man. That's one of my favorite fish. But they are very frustrating fish and very tough fish, especially in this area. I know down south, there's a more abundance of tarpon. We're kind of catching them when they're migrating down to Texas and back. So it's kind of seasonal, and you got to put in some time to get in front of some schools or actually even see the schools. So, but if you kind of learn how to put in that time and learn when they're going to be here, you can get pretty lucky.
When would that be?
Usually June, July. I start fishing for them in June, and kind of around 4th of July is when I've seen kind of the prime time for them. And you get out there around that time and you spend some time out there, you might get lucky and see a school of a couple hundred fish. And usually if you see a school of a couple hundred fish, one of them is going to eat.
So that's close to the hottest time of the year that you're fishing for these for tarpon, huh?
Oh yeah, it's it can be a struggle. I mean, you're still dragging your kayak down the beach. This year, my wife got on her first tarpon, and it was a pretty big fish, and she swears she got heat exhaustion because it was just so hot. Funny story about that too. When a school came by and I kind of casted at the school and hooked up and broke the fish off, and I told her to cast. She cast out, hooked up, and I got out my camera and I was going to follow her and take some pictures and coach her because she's never caught a tarpon. And as I started following her, a school started rolling right to my right, about 10 feet from the kayak, and I had to throw a bait out. So I threw a bait out, hooked up, and we just started getting towed the opposite direction, which was probably not good and a little selfish, but we ended up both landing the fish, and it was pretty awesome. So,
what's like the hookup ratio to actually hooking a tarpon to getting one to the kayak?
Well, I could tell you one thing, and people that I know that go out and fish for them some too, they could tell you different. I would say one in 3 for me, but I know a guy that's hooked about 15 of them and still ain't landed one. So I think it really depends on the technique, and having the right gear to fish for them.
Yeah, it seems like you need to have like the right gear. Like it needs to be heavy enough to land the fish without sacrificing too much of being able to keep the fish on the line because they're such hard fighting fish.
Right. Yeah, I think one thing that people kind of look past is when you actually hook up to a tarpon, their whole mouth is really, really bony. So having heavy enough gear, having heavy enough line and leader, having your drag locked down to be able to really dig that hook in when they bite before they have a chance to jump and shake the hook. Because that's what they do. As soon as they realize they're hooked up, they jump and shake their head. And if you haven't really dug that hook in somewhere in their mouth, which is really hard to do regardless of how good your gear is or whatever, it's hard to do. But if you haven't really dug that in, they're gonna jump and shake the hook. And I think doing that is what a lot of people don't do, and they get scared. They want to like baby this fish because it's their first tarpon, and if you baby it, you're gonna lose it. You're one, you're not getting that hook buried enough. Two, you're gonna fight that fish so long that it's either gonna wear through your leader, jump and break you off, or you're gonna kill that fish because they'll fight till the end. So when I fight a tarpon, even if it's a big one, I'm trying to get that fish in within 10, 15 minutes. So I'm just kind of trying to break that fish's wheel. If it runs to the right, I'm pulling to the left. I'm trying to turn its head every way. And I think that makes a difference in actually landing these fish.
Got to show them who's boss.
Yep.
Yeah. How do you, like, one of the biggest things with a kayak is obviously is carrying the right amount of gear, carrying, like we're always trying to size down our tackle or decide what to bring because we can't bring everything unless we're Kurt and we just throw it all in there. How do you, with so many fish species out there, unless you're specifically targeting one, like tarpon during the in July, how the hell do you figure out what gear to carry?
It's just about what fish are out to target in my area. I mean, there's just so many different species. I mean, you can use literally 1 to 2 setups inshore fishing for redfish, trout, flounder, even bigger jack crevalle. But offshore, sometimes you take a little more tackle, a little more gear because you might be sabikian, you might be pitching at a mahi, you might be snapper fishing, you might be trolling. So there's a couple different setups, but it's really not as much as you think.
Same with you, Brian. Just
yeah. Yeah, I mean, no matter what I'm doing, I'd probably have just one medium-sized tackle box, whether it be freshwater or inshore or offshore. I mean, you just got a Ziploc bag full of stinger rigs and offshore, and then maybe a handful of jigs. I'm pretty simplistic. I don't like to have a lot of stuff with me.
Wow, it's really interesting that you I mean, you obviously know what you're doing. You're guiding. You've got it so dialed in so that your confidence is one tackle box.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. It just you don't need a bunch of different stuff. Like it's not like bass fishing. Where of course when I'm bass fishing a tournament, I have a bunch of stuff. But for saltwater, I mean even inshore saltwater, I can get away with again a small tackle box of stuff. I don't feel the need to have a bunch of this color or that color and have every little different thing. I'm pretty set on thinking that just some light colored lures and some dark colored lures will do the trick. And couple different varieties of that, and that's about all you need.
If they're there, they'll pretty much eat, huh?
Yeah.
What kind of role do electronics play in saltwater kayak fishing? Is it the same? Are you scoping them? I've heard with the bigger boats, they have some crazy gear, but is it what do y'all have rigged up on yours?
No, my offshore, just a basic 7-inch depth finder. It's got down scan on it, which I don't use. I mean, again, offshore, I'm just looking for depth. I'm not really. I mean, I'll use my fish finder if I mark some fish at a certain depth, and I can try to put a bait down there. We do some bottom fishing, but I'm not side scanning or anything like that or scoping. I mean, there's some situations of maybe fishing bridges and triple tail, like on buoys and docks where you could, I thought, scoping would be pretty cool to use, but for me to invest in that for that, I don't see the point of it. I can get away with it using a regular sonar.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same with me. I have down scan and sonar. I got a 9-inch screen, and I really bought that so I could do some bass fishing along with it. But you don't really need nothing that big. Just a regular GPS and a sonar, you can pretty much get away with anything. The reef fish, we're marking all the fish on the sonar. and the rest of the stuff is kind of more of a random thing. You're kind of trolling, and you might see a school of bait, and that's kind of where you focus your attention. But a lot of times, I mean, if there's bait out there, it's usually on top or fish busting or stuff like that. Really, the only thing you need your sonar for is reef fishing. And inshore, to be honest, I don't think I use either. I'm just using the depth. That's all I look at inshore, is just seeing what depth of water I'm in. So
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I mean, because so much of fishing these days seems to be, or at least the talk of fishing seems to be geared around what electronics are you using, what forward-facing sonar are you using, and you guys are basically saying you just need a very basic fishing sonar is good enough.
Yeah, but what I'll say though, I've gotten beat plenty of times in then bass tournaments with forward-facing sonar that I do want to buy one, at least for bass fishing. And I think it would be cool to at least, scan some of these snapper spots, and just would be cool to see that on there, see what it looks like. But I don't know if I want to spend that money and take it out in the salt and risk, saltwater is really hard on everything. I mean, I probably rewire my fish finder 2 to 3 times a year just because of the connections.
Yep.
So, I just wouldn't want to spend I mean, I'd love to try it out and see how it does in certain things, but I don't know if I'm willing to spend that money to get it destroyed that quick. So
do y'all have a great story of a guide trip you went on and a certain fish you put somebody on, like your your best one that you ever put somebody on?
I mean, I got a few things. I mean, that's going back to like the wahoo fishing. I've had a couple of times where I've had guys say they want to catch a wahoo, and we book them on a certain day that we feel it was going to be good. And I've had a couple of times where that's happened on that day. So that's really good. It's a good feeling that we picked the right day and got them what they want. Because again, with wahoo, I mean, our best years, we've caught 7. And that's out of 170 trips through the year, so it's not a high percentage. So to pick a date and have some that's what they want, and then to get that is a good feeling.
And wahoo steaks taste good.
Yeah. Oh, I love some wahoo.
Yeah, for real.
I think one of my best days is, for the longest time, I would never take anyone tarpon fishing. I was very selfish about it. I wanted to just go when it's tarpon season. I wanted to go tarpon for myself, and I always had people, messaging me, "Hey, take me tarpon fishing, take me tarpon fishing." And I put it off for so long because I know how frustrating it can be. It can be, you go out, because there's really nothing, when you go tarpon fishing in my area, there's really nothing else to do besides focus on tarpon in that area. So it's either that or nothing. And I put it off for a long time. I even told people, this is what I would kind of say if somebody wanted to book a tarpon charter is, "Hey, I'll take you, but we probably won't see any. And if we see them, you probably ain't going to get them to bite. And if you get them to bite, you're probably going to break them off. But if you're good with all that, I'll take you."
Yeah.
And, there's still some people that said, yeah. And one of them guys was, one of my buddies, Everett Park, who, fishes out of Manuka. I took him, his first trip out there, and he got one. So that was a pretty awesome experience, and that was kind of one of my first tarpon trips I ever took. I just was putting it off for so long. I've took friends and stuff like that, but I was like, he kept begging me, and I was like, all right, well, this is what could happen, and it worked out. And there's been a couple since then, but I always remember that one because it just worked out perfect. Everything lined up, and you got that bucket list fish.
That's the typical speech I give people too about tarpon. It's like, do you want to catch fish, or you're going to be gung ho and you only want a tarpon? Because you might not get one.
Yep. Some people want that.
Yeah.
How about sailfish for you? Is it like a pretty good shot of catching one?
Yeah, it's a much more guarantee. Oh. Yeah. So again, our most caught offshore are kingfish and sailfish. So I would say, we probably getting at least a bite, 1 out of every 3 trips, 1 out of every other day. It can go every day. They'll be through, for a week or 2. We're getting them every day. Then you might have a week where they're not around, and maybe have one, week where it's one day not, kind of back and forth. But I would say overall, probably a 1 in 3 chance.
still a pretty damn good chance catching a fish of a lifetime.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing over there. That's for sure.
Yeah, I've never caught one.
That's to get a bite. So you gotta land the fish.
Not catching one.
Yeah.
That's all you can ask for, though.
Yeah.
So what are some don'ts for clients? Like if you want to come out and book a trip, what are some things you should not do? I'm sure y'all have some horror stories.
Listen to your guide.
That's the most important right there. Listen to your guys for sure.
Yeah, the biggest thing with me is people get real antsy and they get excited and they want to, grab the rod right away and start reeling. And I try to make everybody let the rod holder do the work and leave that rod in the rod holder. A lot of people want to hold on to the rod before, so they can feel the bite and whatnot. But then that's usually when they mess up. But yeah, just the biggest thing is just listen to what we have to say. I mean, Brennan's been doing this for a long time as well. We know what we're doing. Been doing it for a long time, so we kind of have an idea what to do.
I think what I get the most, there's a lot of people that come over here from bass fishing, or that's where they grew up bass fishing. They want to come over here and try saltwater fishing. A lot of times we go snapper fishing and we're using circle hooks, whether it be bottom fishing. We also do a lot of free lining for snapper. But 85% of the people are constantly setting the hook and pulling the hook out of the fish. Just like he said, how he leaves, the rod in the rod holder, you got to let the fish kind of set itself. It's the same thing we do with snapper fishing, but I sit there and watch them back and forth, just yanking, as soon as they feel that bite, they jerk up and they lose the fish every time because it's going to pull that circle hook right out of the mouth. So that's one of the big things I see a lot. But like Brian said, I mean, some people just don't listen. They don't, I can remember one of the ones that scares the crap out of me. I had a repeat client bring his uncle out, and, the way I work a trip is, I launch everybody through the surf, and then I go back in first and wade out and catch them, say, hey, come in, hey, watch that wave, whatever. And I tell everybody this before we go. Well, went out and did a trip, and on the way back through, the uncle thought he was Mr. Badass and decided to, haul butt and try to go to the shore. I guess he was tired of the trip or whatever it was. And I yelled for him, and he didn't want to listen. He kept going, and there was some surf, and then you got to be careful. And next thing I know, I see my kayak getting flipped nose over tail in the surf. And he's lucky he didn't get hurt. And it was all I told my client, I said, don't ever bring him back, because if he can't listen, I don't want somebody getting hurt out here. And it's not really that dangerous if you don't listen and you don't follow certain rules that we all follow in a kayak. I saw a post that I shared today. The tuna has been biting really good out here, and a lot of people are going out to try it. And a guy went out this past weekend in a sit-in kayak. I'm talking like a Walmart sit-in kayak, and he sunk it, and he had to get drugged back to the beach by a boat that was out there. And it's, I live in Florida, but the temperatures are dropping down. I mean, we had 40 degree weather the past week. So it's still hypothermia kind of climate if you get out there and you can't get out of the water. So I just can't imagine why someone would go out there. And it was a rough day, go out there in a sit-in kayak. So that's why I made a post and told everybody, if you're wanting to get into kayak fishing, book a guide trip. Me and Brian, anybody who does it will teach you the right way to do it and the safe way. It's not always about catching fish. It's about teaching you how to go out and be safe and come home to your family and learning how to catch a fish at the same time.
What do you do?
Really interesting too to hear.
Go ahead, Kurt. Sorry.
It's really interesting to hear because, so many people that, at least the people that I talk to when they get a guide, they're not talking about learning something. They're talking like, hey, I want them to put me on fish. They're not talking like, hey, I want this guy to show me like the ins and outs so I can be safe in doing this stuff. How do I launch on the surf? How do I come back in between the waves? Because I feel like I've got a lot of experience kayaking, but I have almost zero experience being in the ocean in a kayak, which is a totally different deal.
Right. I feel like at least maybe 50 or more % of people that I start to take recently are people looking to get into kayak fishing, and they're looking to learn how to, whether it be offshore or topwater redfish or whatever it is, they're interested in it. And it's kind of, on a boat, people are out to catch fish, but a lot of times in a kayak, they're not just out to catch fish. They're out to catch fish in a kayak. So they're even thinking about it or wanting to experience something different.
Yeah, I get, I mean, I don't know a percentage, but I mean, I get people wanting to learn. I get people that are just there to catch fish. And I also get people that they're in town and they saw my website and like, that's different. And then they may not even fished before or been in a kayak. So I get those people as well. So it's a wide variety.
It seems like you were like where you were talking about people taking the rod out of the rod holder. Do you get a lot of lost gear?
I have all my stuff leashed
Oh, okay.
once I give it to the client. So not really. You know, if stuff gets lost, it's usually coming back in the surf if someone rolls or something like that. But you know, I make sure I take everything, all the rods back, and I have it in my possession before we come into the surf.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same thing I do. I don't leash my rods. I probably should. I've been very lucky not to lose anything so far. But I definitely do not give my rods to my clients until it's time to actually fish. So all the gear is in my boat when I launch, and then when we get to where we're fishing at, I'll give them one rod. And you know, once we start to head back in or get ready to enter the surf zone, I'll take all the rods back, stow them away. And I'll tell you kind of a funny story too. My buddy Matthew Van, when he used to do charters, we would also kind of do like some double charters where if it was a big group, we'd help each other. I was out there fishing, or I was out there guiding my two guys, and he was guiding another two guys. And I got this on GoPro, but one of his clients hooked up to a big snapper, and you know, we keep the drag pretty locked down on that to get them out of the reef. But they weren't really prepared when the fish bit and it kind of had the rod off the side. You know, you obviously want to fight a big fish off the bow of your kayak, but he had it off to the side. And when he hooked up, he took a flip. And I posted that video online. We helped the guy. Everything was cool. We landed the fish, got the guy back in his kayak. But I posted the video online, and everybody was calling this video fake. They were like, oh, who goes offshore kayak fishing with only one rod and no other gear in the boat? And I'm like, yeah, my clients do, because this is the reason why.
I get people comment on photos all the time, like where I've taken the rod away from them already, and then they have the fish to hold for a picture. And they're like, that guy didn't catch it. He doesn't even have a rod in his boat. Like, yeah. Come on, dude.
The internet.
So how many other, it sounds like you guys work with other guides really well. How many kayak fishing guides are down your guys' way doing this stuff?
There's one other outfitter by me.
Yeah, there's a couple around me. They kind of come and go. They've been doing it for years. My buddy Matthew that used to do it, he doesn't do it anymore. There's really, in my area, I only know one or two. But like I said, they're always coming and going. And I've not always done it full time. I'm doing it full time right now. Kind of been doing it, you know, on the weekends when I had a full-time job. So it's just back and forth, it seems like. Everybody wants to be a kayak fishing guide until they do it for a couple months, and then they realize how much work it really is.
It's work, and it's not about you fishing. It's about helping somebody else fish. That's the biggest misunderstanding.
Yep. And you obviously don't get to fish as much if you're taking everybody out fishing.
Yeah, guides don't generally fish nearly as much as people think.
Yep.
Whenever you go out, have you ever went out, you took a client out, and then the next day they're sitting on your reef, or they're sitting on your spot in their own kayak?
Definitely not in my area, because something would be going down. I take a lot of people that want to use their own kayaks, and I do not allow them to bring their fish finder or anything. So, yeah. I mean, even if they're out there playing on their phone, you know, for a long period of time or something, I'm going to say something to them. It's just the spots that I fish are private numbers. Obviously, anything dropped in the ocean, it turns into public, but these numbers aren't published on the internet. So, and that's why they're good. So, and keeping them private and keeping them not having so much pressure on them is really important to me, especially if I'm making money off catching the fish off the reef. So I got to be very careful. I posted a video not long ago. I had a boat roll up on me on one of my spots, and you know, it's not the fact that they rolled up on, you know, it's not the fact that they're coming up to my spot, because it's not my spot. You know, it's in the ocean, but you know, I would never roll up on someone on a spot this small and just try to sit on top of them. You know, it's like they saw me there, they know I was catching fish, they roll up, try to mark it. And, you know, I had some words with the guy, and the very end of the conversation, the guy asked me to give him a spot. So that just goes to show you what kind of mentality that guy had. You know, I was like, come on, man, give us some space. He's like, well, why don't you give me another spot to go to? I'm like, really? So.
People
Yeah,
suck.
way down that way.
Yeah, it's not as severe by me because we're not really going to, you know, a GPS coordinate. You know, and things change all the time. I don't always launch in the same spot. It kind of varies throughout the year, you know, for offshore and inshore as well. But you know, and if I see if someone's, you know, within a 2-hour drive that's booking a trip, I generally kind of might take them to somewhere else that I don't normally go. But I know there's still decent fishing.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a
Yeah.
little bit of strategy there.
Yeah, inshore, you know, if somebody wants to do like just like you said, somebody wants to do an inshore trip, say for big trout, and they live here, they're not going to my number one trout spot that I personally fish. You know, I'm taking to a generic spot, even if I know that spot's not going to produce what my big trout spot's going to. It's just how it is. I'm not taking you to a spot that is far and few between, so you can be sitting on it every day, you know, when I want to go catch a big trout. So, you know, you still got to be careful out there.
Do y'all get those big giant like 5-pound trout?
Oh yeah.
Really? I've never caught one. Mississippi, they don't get that big.
They do. You just got to find them.
Man, I'm telling dude, our limits suck. The whole thing over there in the Mississippi Gulf Coast is horrible.
Mississippi and Louisiana starting to change a little bit though. I know they're starting to change some of the regs in Louisiana. They used to keep like 50 trout and 25 reds and crazy.
Yeah, whenever I was growing up, it was like a lot of times we would go to Louisiana because it was only an hour and a half to where we wanted to be, and it was 25 trout and 5 redfish, and we would limit out in less time than what it took to drive there.
Wow.
That place is pretty amazing though. Louisiana is definitely a special fishery.
Yeah, but none of them are like I see Dustin Nichols like down in Texas, and he's always catching like big 5-pound trout. I've never even seen one that big down there.
Yeah.
But you know,
Texas and Florida, that's the two places that's got them big trout.
Yeah. So what's y'all's favorite saltwater fish to eat? The pros that see them every day.
Cobia is probably my favorite.
Okay.
And then tuna as well. That would probably be the top 2.
I would have to say number 1 is probably triple tail. Wahoo, tuna, and cobia are all together, and mahi pretty much. Them 5 are probably the top 5 right there. But I like triple tail a lot.
How do y'all cook them? Just fry, grill?
I like to blacken pretty much everything except tuna. Tuna, you know, obviously you sear, but blacken. I'm a big fan of blackened.
Okay.
What kind of tunas do you guys see? Do you guys just see black tunas, or do you see some other different species of tuna down?
Yeah, it's blackfin's the main thing. That's pretty rare. There is some yellowfin that's caught. Typically February, March, there'll be maybe a handful of like the boating fleet might get a few, but it's very rare. And then we get some skipjack tuna and, you know, the bonita as well, but blackfin's the one that we're looking for.
Yeah, pretty much the same for us. Ours are mostly blackfin. If you wanted to catch, you know, yellowfin, you're going out at least 30 miles or so on a boat. So we get bonita also in close. It's usually bonita and blackfin tuna that we see kayak range.
Cool. Well, I guess we'll kind of swap over. Do y'all do to freshwater now? Yeah, I know, Brian, you said that you do freshwater trips. Do you do them too, Brandon?
I don't. There's just not really the freshwater fishery here. There's a couple of ponds and small lakes in my area. If I lived probably another 2 hours to the east around Panama area, I probably would do them. Yeah.
Is that what it is?
What is it?
The Sawassi, Sawane?
Oh yeah, I'm not even sure where that's at. That's
Something
a
like
little
that.
farther. But there's some smaller lakes, a couple hours away, and then you got, Lake Seminole, but just not in my range, not within a, under an hour drive. It's not really worth my time to do it. If I'm going to go bass fishing here, I would probably go to Lake Seminole, or the only other thing really to do around here would be to, pond hop, just walking around bank fishing.
Swanee, I think that's what I'm talking about. I think that's over more towards Tallahassee, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian, how about you?
One of my favorite lakes, man. I mean,
Man?
if
I
you're
like
there,
Seminole.
Yeah.
Oh,
Again, for charter wise, we pretty much freshwater is more of the exotic with the peacock bass and clown knife fish. There is largemouth in the chain that we fish, but we're not necessarily targeting largemouth. We're more looking for peacock bass in the clowns.
Never caught
how
either.
big of a peacock bass you guys you catching?
What was that?
How big do the peacock bass get that you?
Average size is 2 to 3 pounds. A good one is going to be in that 4 to 6 pound range. Typically, we're not getting anything over 6 pounds because they're not the Amazon strain. They're the butterfly peacock, and they're not the real 20, 25 pounders that you see in the Amazon.
Can't believe somebody hadn't introduced that strain in there.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Yeah.
I don't know the logistics of that if it would work.
Brian, I got one right next to me that you can take down there and try
Yeah.
to breathe.
Need more than one.
Yeah.
Oh, you have one in a tank?
I got two peacocks, and one's, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's the biggest peacock bass species from the Amazon. It's this one. I got to get a bigger tank because he's a freaking giant. He's like almost probably 20 inches now. So he's pretty big for a peacock.
Do y'all keep the peacock bass and eat them?
No, I generally don't recommend keeping it. I mean, people do, but I tell clients that you don't really want to eat it. I mean, again, where we're fishing is pretty much canals and it's all drainage, so I wouldn't necessarily want to eat anything out of it, but that's to each its own.
Yeah. I didn't know if it was seen as like, a trash fish or.
No, people. I mean, it's like, do you eat largemouth bass? I mean, Kurt, do you eat largemouth?
I mean, I have.
Yeah, you probably have. So it's just people eat them. People choose to eat whatever they want, but I don't recommend it.
I guess whenever you have so many other species to eat, you don't want to, you don't need to eat that one, I guess.
Yeah, we're not struggling.
Yeah, the freezer stays full, I'm sure. Do you just catch do y'all just have so much fish, or just always giving away fish, or do the clients just take it home? Do sometimes they not want it, or how does that work?
Yeah, majority of my clients take it, but I do have people that they're just here on business or something, or they can't take it to their hotel or whatever, and they then I'll take it and give it away.
Yeah, pretty much the same for me. I mean, I gotta pretty much bribe my neighbor so he's not mad at me for cleaning fish in my driveway all the time. So I give away a lot of fish to him, and I've had old men drive past. I live in a neighborhood, so old men drive past while I'm cleaning a snapper in the driveway. What you got there? Give that stuff away because I feed them to my peacocks too. I cut up fillets and feed them to my peacocks too. So I'm constantly giving fish away. I've got more in my freezer than I'll ever eat, and most of my family, my wife eats a little bit of it, but that's about it. My kids don't really eat much fish, so
Really?
yeah, I don't know why, because they're weird like that, but I love it. So I could eat it multiple times a week.
Yeah. Do y'all have any problems? I don't know how that works with mercury and things like that down there. Are there any environmental issues why you wouldn't eat the fish down there?
You just like king mackerel, especially, you don't want to eat a lot of. It does have high mercury content, but I mean, just in general, I don't think you'd want to. Probably shouldn't eat more fish more than maybe twice a week, any kind of fish. So,
yeah, pretty much the same for us. The king mackerel is the only one you really gotta watch out for. That's kind of known about king mackerel, that they're high in mercury content. So I personally don't even eat king mackerel, so that one, gets thrown back or given away.
Real oily, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been so long since I caught one. They're hard to clean too, right? Or is that Spanish?
No, any mackerel's pretty quick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they got pretty thin skin.
Gotcha. It's been a long time since I cleaned one. I've been up in Alabama for 12 years now, so we don't have any around here. So I guess have both of y'all ever fished Harris chain? I guess it's closer to you, Brian.
Yeah,
I guess we have to ask about that since the Hobie's coming there.
yeah, I've fished I think with Bassmaster and Hobie, so that's at least twice, and did not do good either time. So I'm hoping to change that around this year.
So there's so many lakes. How do you decide which lake to fish?
Yeah, that's the hard part. Yeah, you kind of just got to pick a spot, pick a lake. I'm gonna go up a couple times before it's off limits this year and kind of explore some different lakes because I kind of went back to the same areas both those times and was kind of banking on that. It both backfired on me both times, so I need to expand more from what I've been doing there. So we'll see what happens.
And is it the same time of the year as it was last? I haven't fished either one.
It's like 3 weeks earlier, 2 weeks earlier, so it should be. I don't know. I think I looked at it was on the full moon too, so it could be a big time spawn thing. So we'll see.
How long does the spawn last there too? Because I got a friend that's down there, and he's saying that he's catching some males that are just now moving up to start and he says the tails are beat up and they're starting to nest a little bit, starting to build the nest. And I'm like, man, I mean, this isn't not even January.
Yeah. Yeah, every lake varies. I mean, that's going to be different for everything. But yeah, I mean, they could start now until February, March, even. It just kind of depends on what the lake conditions are. On the Harris chain, I'm not sure for sure. When they typically do it on that lakes or those lakes, but it can vary greatly.
I mean, that's a wide range because I know in Ohio, man, once they go to spawn, it seems like we have like 10 days.
Yeah.
Well, and that's it.
Florida's like two different states. So it's like, North Florida is totally different than South Florida. So again, it varies greatly from south to north. And again, just even individual lakes.
My first ever big college event in 2012 was on Harris Chain. I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was a definite spawn event. And it seemed like a lot of canals were playing, a lot of, like where they stage in areas. It was like mostly spawn, a little bit of pre-spawn. So definitely in the early part of the spawn. And it was like staging areas outside grass lines and canals and things like that is where I think a lot of the people did well, but who knows,
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it shapes up for the Hobie event. But it's always interesting at that first event.
Yeah. That's always that. Usually everybody comes out for that because they've been, cooped up inside all winter and they finally get to fish.
That's right. Or you got people like me who just want to get out of Ohio.
Brandon, how about you, man? You going to fish that one?
I'm hoping to. That's one of the ones I kind of put on the list to fish, and I haven't got to fish it yet. So, depending how next couple months shake out for me, we'll see. I'd like to get down there and fish it. That's one of the ones that I've definitely wanting to try out. I got to finally fish Caddo this year. That was one that I wanted to check out, and that's an amazing lake. So, hopefully, I make it. We'll see.
Yeah, Bass is going there this year. I've never fished there either. I'm excited to finally get to hit it. You see it every year on the schedule, and everybody does so well in giant bags. I'm excited to finally get to go.
Yeah, the only downside, so like when I was fishing it, the first couple of days it was kind of slow for me, and then that last day, there's so many cypress trees everywhere, and stumbled across some trees that were holding a lot of fish and bigger fish, and did well the last day, but that doesn't mean nothing if you do well the last day. But And then to find out, the guy who won was just, side scanning the trees and marking giant fish and throwing jerk baits at them. And I was like, dang, I got to get me a front sonar bad.
Rolando, that dude is deadly with the forward facing sonar.
It's crazy.
All right. Well, I mean, we talked about it, we covered it. So whenever people are going down the Harris chain or before or after, where can they look y'all up and book a trip with y'all? Brandon, we'll start with you, man.
Just check out my website at www.emeraldwaterskayakcharters.com.
Cool.
Yeah, you can find me at tckayakfishing.com or Pushing Water Kayak Charters on any social media platform.
Sounds good. And this is our last episode until January, so we appreciate y'all listening, and everybody have a good holidays, and we'll see you back at the new year. Later.
See ya.
See ya.
Thank you.